up? Alright, so I've introed this video like 4 times because I have been doing this video over the last 2 nights, and needless to say, I feel like I need to do a little bit of a better intro, more organized intro. So over the last 2 nights, I have been taking the heater core out, which it is officially out, but that's where it's at. It's out. I just got the new part today, which is right here. I broke some plastic on the housing. That's what that's for. And then I also got a 7/16 deep socket, and I'll show you what this is for here in a little bit. Needless to say, my hands hurt. I've tore up my hands, and I'm to the point where I hope this is gonna get easier, because I think I have tackled the hardest part, which is taking everything out and doing it all for the first time. So logic tells me putting it all back just in reverse order, it will be a little simpler because I've done it before, just in the opposite order. So again, I am taking the heater core out of my 1985 C10. The whole reason I'm doing this isn't to show that I can do it or prove anything to myself or make myself feel better. The whole reason I'm doing this is because it's literally a $30 part, and auto repair shops will charge you anywhere from $300 to $400 to $450. It just kind of depends on where you go. I just wanted to stop this video right here and put in that after I was finished with this job, out of curiosity, I called a local auto repair shop and got a quote for an 85 C10 heater core replacement. They quoted me, get this, $700. So $300, $350 to $450, that was a really conservative guess at this point in the video, which makes me doing this and going through everything a lot more worth it. So I just wanted to interject and say that. And I'm not all about that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend money that I don't have to. So I'm trying this for the first time. It really hasn't been that hard. I've actually been kind of following 2 or 3 different videos, which I will link down below, because huge credit goes to them. One guy explained stuff really, really well. The stuff that I don't think he explained very well for a first timer, another guy explains. And so they kind of pick up slack for each other. But what I'm going to do here in a little bit, and I will show you down below right now exactly at what time this video, or what time of this video that this part starts, so you can fast forward to this part below. But I'm going to show you diagrams of still images and show you everywhere where nuts and bolts are, everywhere where you need to take things out, etc. That's one thing I haven't come across yet. But there's no way I could have gotten to this point while filming, so I didn't even try. But if you want to kind of enjoy the ride of all the footage that I've done thus far, keep watching. If not, like I said, skip to this part of the video and you will be able to just kind of get to where you need to be if you're wanting to take this out yourself. So enjoy. Again, I am on my 3rd night of doing this. I've given myself increments each night instead of trying to do it all at once, because I know myself I'd get frustrated and I'd rush it. So I have deliberately set aside time each night to do this. I didn't even get the part until last night, until I verified 100% that that's what I needed. I was 99% sure. I looked at it, knew that's what I needed, so I got the part today. But yeah, sit back, buckle up, and either, like I said, skip to this part of the video if you want to just see how to do it and where to take bolts out and so on and so forth, or enjoy this video of my chaos and stress. So buckle up and enjoy it. Alright, like I said, this is day 3. I am to the point where I have the part. I need to install the part, and I need to do everything that I did before, just in reverse order. So it's a lovely 38 degrees outside, so my garage is cold. But I got this puppy that I found at my parents' house my dad wasn't using. And it is pumping out some warm air. I think it's set on 72, 70. It's obviously not there yet, but it feels really, really good. It's not very dark in here, but the camera can't pick stuff up, so I'm gonna have to show you with my flashlight. Here's where we stopped last night. So that's I guess this side faces me in the cab. This side faces the firewall. And just for giggles, here is the old heating core, or heater core, sorry, with where it was coming out right there. Not a super bad leak, and again, I'm impressed for this being original. That's the front. There's the back with the messy part. And yeah, whoa. That's what we were replacing. We were going from brass, super, super heavy, which really doesn't make a difference, to aluminum, which I will show you guys right now. And here's the new heater core. Old, new. old, new. Looks a little bit smaller, which I don't think that's gonna be a big deal. I don't think smaller would be an issue. I think bigger would be an issue. But yeah, that's it. So we're gonna see how easy this is to put back in here, put everything back together, and I will update you guys as soon as I do that. All right, I'm going to give a little update on this. This just has been a handful. It's, I would say, a little less than a nightmare. It's been horrible. Getting this back on, I'm going to show you pictures of what I did. Again, if you're watching this and you're tired of it, go to this point in the video and you'll be able to see everything. But I think what's going to be able to best help people is photos with where you need to take stuff out. I found another video from a guy who literally just didn't talk anything about getting that out of the truck, just talked about how to take this out. And it was super, super helpful. He actually mentioned something that the 2 videos I had watched before did not mention, and it makes a lot of sense. So right now, another tip I would have is take a picture or a video or something like that of what you're about to do. Because I have this little part right here, I have no idea what it goes to. But the more I think about it, I think it goes under here, which I will show you in the diagram of what exactly that does. It's the fan actuator. I think that goes right there, and I think this part was put on after, obviously after the fact. So it may not be original like I had once thought, because this part obviously is not original at all. So I would not doubt at all that this is just an aftermarket part to act in place of the part that he broke. So again, I will update you guys later, but I'm taking pictures right now to make sure that I can give you guys a good diagram. All right, we are back. I took a break for a little while, ate dinner, went to the store, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is, I think the last clip I showed you how this was kind of all being assembled, and I also took photos just to be able to make the diagram. So I've taken a photo of it this way, I've taken a photo of the things that you need to remove up close, things like that, things like that. I had a little bit of trouble putting some of this in, again, because it was never mentioned on any of the videos that I saw. I had no clue. There's a piece under here. I had no clue where to put that, and it fell out whenever I took this apart, as it should have, but no videos mentioned anything about it. And so I went ahead and I'm gonna cover that in the diagram and all that kind of good stuff. I really, really hope it does everything that I've kind of gone through up until this point. I hope it does it justice, because I would hate for somebody to go through everything that I went through. And not saying it's the worst, but if I can make it easier for somebody, why not? The last clip I mentioned, I did not know what this was for. Ew, my hands are really dry. I didn't know what this was for, and there is an area on here that a lot of the videos I've watched have talked about. It's right there where that little tab is. That goes to the vacuum. That's a vacuum actuator. If you're about to do this, be sure to take a picture of everything before you do it. If I would have taken a picture of every side of this on the outside, I wouldn't be facing this right now, but I learned. So, like I said, I think this is the only place that could go, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it there. Otherwise, I'm missing a part completely, so I would need to order it online, which I really don't want to do. So I'm gonna put it right there and hope for the best. All right. So I've got this somewhat in the truck now. So this is my dash. That's the housing. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to hook up all this stuff up here. I'm gonna hook it up how it was before I undid everything. Whenever you take it out, you get it down to about where I had it. Actually, it was a little bit higher, and then that's when you start taking off the stuff up top. I will put a diagram of where everything goes, probably on the pictures I just took, so it's not going to be actually in the car. But there's a vacuum line down that way. There's 2 vacuum lines over here. What else is there? There's a little tube down there that goes from this to this vent right here. And then of course there is, let's see, this right here that will go on top of this bracket right here. So I'm gonna set all that up, and again, I'll explain that more on the diagram. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that done, and then I will update you. All right, not sure where I stopped. Oh my gosh, from yesterday, but I pretty much could have finished this up yesterday, but I didn't because I wanted to clarify a couple of things before I got to where I would have to rip this out and start all over. So one thing about this, and I could not figure out what exactly this little guy did right here. Let me see, turn on my phone. I couldn't really figure out what that guy did. But I sat there logically looking at it. That is tied right here to the vacuum actuator via this screw right here. This right here is tied to the door via that screw. So it ties the pump or the vacuum actuator to the door. So when the vacuum actuator goes in and out, it's gonna move this door with it. That was one of my concerns. I wanna say somebody has messed with this before, and I know I mentioned it before, that is definitely an aftermarket piece. I don't even think that's what it's intended for, but that's what it was used for. Every video I ever watched about this, people easily broke that. So I'm gonna be sure and put that in the instructions part of this video to make sure that you guys don't break it like whoever messed with it before me did. I don't know why I felt the need to take that off. I'm glad I did, because if you don't remove this, which I guess you don't have to, you actually have to separate the actuator in here. It has two pieces that come down and connect in the middle. So that's like, yeah, anyways. But I wanted to verify that this door shouldn't be shut. And a guy I had posted on Facebook with a couple of C10 groups I'm in, I just said, hey, I need clarification. I want to verify this is it before I put this back on my truck and I have to rip it out again. Obviously it would be quicker if I had to do it again, but I really don't want to. So either way, that is it. And I am going to end up putting this back up and I will update you guys after that. Okay, so first things first, obviously we had more of a vlog style at the beginning of this video. I got to the point where I literally could have just recorded what I had already been doing. So I only have a couple things to button up, so I figured I'd finish this video and get as far with it as I could, but that's it for the vlog. So here it is, jumping right into directions, or hopefully helpful directions on how to do this crap. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to take this apart, the heater core housing, what you need to do in the engine bay. So first steps are you need to take these speed nuts off of the bolts where I have these circles. There's one up here on the upper right hand side. There's one almost directly below it behind the AC, and then there's one to the left. Now the one to the left at the very bottom is really, really tricky to get. I read that a lot of people take the wheel well out to get. That's unnecessary. My hand actually fit between there, between that and the truck bed itself, or the truck body itself. But if you get a couple of extensions and a 7/16 deep socket, you can reach it without having to take the wheel well out. So that's unnecessary. Do it if you want to, but I feel like it's a lot more work. Trust me, I undid all the bolts on the wheel well, and there are a ton, and putting them back takes even longer. So those are the 3 speed nuts that you need to take out first. And then the second part, moving on to the heater hoses, they are attached. This is actually the new heater core that I have in there, but the old one, the hoses are attached to these 2 parts right here, and you'll just remove those. Note to self, you're gonna have some spilled coolant, so be prepared to clean that up or put a rag under there to kind of minimize the coolant spill. But after you take that out, just kind of tuck those away or plug them to keep them from coming out even more. And then you will move into the cab of the truck. So moving into the cab of the truck, this is looking at the dash. I went ahead and took the glove box off. Some people take the cigarette lighter or the ashtray area off, which I didn't do that and I didn't have a problem. But after taking that off and kind of folding it back to the carpet, it gives me a lot better view and vantage point to get everything out. So the circles indicate where bolts and nuts are that you're gonna have to remove again. And then the squares indicate any kind of vacuum lines. So the far right, there's a bolt somewhere in that general area. And then the far left, there's another bolt that I had to end up just kind of finding. But once you find it, it's easy to take out and remove. After that point, you need to remove the vacuum lines, which the top square, there are 2 vacuum lines. There's one that goes directly on top of one of the little pots, and then one that goes behind it. The one that goes on top has a straight little vacuum plug thing, and then the one on the back has like a little ring as well as a vacuum plug. So the way that I kind of remembered what went where, because you do need to remember where to put them, is the straight one just goes straight down, and then the curly Q kind of helps it stay in place, and that's how I kind of remembered it. The far left one has a curly Q one as well, so you need to remove those vacuum lines and those bolts. Okay, so next, in front of the bottom blue square, there's going to be a cover that's not currently in this picture. But if you look at that, at the bottom of it, there's going to be 2 bolts that you remove, and you're going to take that cover off. Remove that, put it aside, and then the top blue rectangle, there's going to be like a collapsible tunnel type thing that ends up going to this far right vent. So you're going to take that off and put that aside as well. So next, after you remove all of that, you're going to want to pull the housing out of the truck, and don't pull it completely out of its area. Just pull it down low enough where you can access the top, because there are some things that you need to take apart before you can remove the housing from the truck completely. So this right here is what is going to move the door from AC to heat. It's controlled by the hot and cold switch and your control panel for your AC and heat. It has this little, I don't even know what this is called right here, but what I ended up doing was that little plate that kind of looks like a UFO, I ended up taking a pair of pliers and just kind of wiggling it up. So after you do that, to the left of it, there's going to be some more bolts that you need to undo. That's going to release this little lever and kind of leave it hanging and dangling. So you also need to remove these 3 bolts right here to get this bracket off. I'm not 100% sure if you have to do that. Every video I watched, you did it, and I just went ahead and did it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but you want to do that, and then you will be ready to take this thing out of the truck. So after you've gotten it out of the truck, you're going to set it down, and it's going to look something like this. I took this after the fact, so I have the new heater core in there. I still have the bracket that I had you remove a second ago on there, but that's circled, and as well as every bolt that was accessible through the engine bay is circled as well, so you can kind of see where those are at and get an idea. You have each vacuum. I circled those as well, so you can kind of get an idea of where the vacuum lines will be coming out of. But this is kind of what you'd be looking at if you took it out of the truck. It took me forever to get it out of the truck, so if it takes you a while to get it out, don't get frustrated. Like I said, I gave myself a little bit of time each night because I know myself. I'll get frustrated and I'll hurry up and I'll halfway do something and I'll rush it. So I didn't want to do that. So I gave myself, an hour or so every night so I'd be able to do this right. Here is another photo. This is just kind of a top view, or more so the view that faces the engine bay or the firewall. This is just for reference to show you one of the pots to the left, and then the 2 areas where you'll put your heater hoses, and then the door that moves left and right to determine whether the truck is going to get AC or heat. Okay, so here's where it can kind of get a little complicated. So as you see, I have a square and then I have a couple circles. The circles are going to indicate some hidden bolts that you won't be able to see with your eyes. And then there's going to be bolts all over the thing that you're going to remove, but you're going to be able to see them pretty clearly. To the left of the red circles, there's going to be 5 or 6 bolts. I can't remember, but you're going to be able to see them fairly easily. To the right, there's going to be 2, one kind of by where you put the heater hoses in, and then one directly across from it. And then where the 2 circles are at the very top of the picture, where kind of the foam is, you're going to lift that foam up, and there's going to be 2 bolts under there that you need to take out. The very bottom circle, this is a pin for another lever, and this keeps the door, I want to say for the defrost, open and shut via the vacuum. So you're going to take that pin out, and be careful when you do it, because I believe the pin has a straight edge at the end, which kind of keeps it in place. So it can't just be pulled out easily. It has to be lined up, pretty particularly, and you're going to pull it out that way. So just be gentle and easy and take your time when you do that. Next, the second circle from the bottom, this little lever thing kind of tilted to the right. You are going to tilt that straight up, and you're going to see it kind of has a little path that it can take when you remove the top part of the housing from the bottom. So that has to be lined up perfectly for you to remove the top portion from the bottom piece. And once you do that, don't rip it completely apart, because you're going to end up breaking a piece that I'll show you here in a little bit. But once you do that, lift it up just to where you can get a socket in there, and that moves us directly to the blue square. That is the vacuum, and the vacuum has an actuator. The actuator is 2 pieces of metal that kind of look like a popsicle stick, that are joined in the middle by a screw and make one long popsicle stick looking thing. So what you have to do is you have to remove that screw to make it 2 separate pieces, and that's how you take everything apart for you to be able to remove this housing and separate it into 2 pieces. Okay, so the picture I said I'd show you here in a second as to why you don't just want to rip the 2 pieces of housing apart right away without undoing the little popsicle stick thing is this little guy right here. So this was obviously taken in the cab of the truck. This is an aftermarket part that I assume whoever has owned the truck within the 34 years of it being in existence has broken at one time or another. So this is a little makeshift part that joins the vacuum actuator to the door. So as you can see, if you look really close, there's a screw that screws this little part into the door. And then there's another screw that screws it into the vacuum actuator that sticks through the door. So once you undo the popsicle stick into 2 pieces, this will kind of keep it in place, or whatever you have. If you have OEM, it's going to be plastic, so it's super, super easy to break. But out of all the videos that I watched about this, a lot of people broke it. So that's what you want to be really, really careful about. After you get all of that out, you're ready to remove the old, bad heater core. So it's pretty self-explanatory from that point. It's gonna have a little band that keeps it in place. Just unscrew that. It's gonna have one at the top and the bottom, just so it's made sure, you know, it's secure and stuff like that. Mine was actually broken, so I had to ghetto rig it somehow. I don't remember how I did, but you don't really need to see any pictures of that. It's self-explanatory, so take that out, swap the new one in exactly how you took it out. Again, I think it's a good idea if you reference the pictures that you took, not just kind of the words that I'm saying, but so moving to this photo right here, after you've buttoned everything back up, so literally you do everything in reverse order that you just did. So you put the new heater core in and you start putting everything back on. This little blue square that I have right here, this was a part that had fallen out whenever I took the 2 pieces apart, and not a single video that I watched referenced it. I kind of just had to figure it out. It is gonna look almost like the hinge of a door, and you're gonna be able to see a little hook on one side and then I believe kind of a pin on the other side. You put the little hook in a space closest to the center of the housing, and then you put the little pin on the outer part. You can kind of see it poking through at the top left of that square, but that's where that goes. So I was totally confused on where that went. I'll throw in a picture right here of one of the OEM parts or from one of the videos. But yeah, I was completely confused on where that went, and that took me a long time trying to figure out where it went. So that's where that goes. Okay, so now that you have everything buttoned up, you feel good about where everything is, everything's in its place, you want to put this back in the cab of the truck. So you don't want to try and put it up immediately because you're not going to have room to be able to attach everything you detached. So if you need to, reference back earlier in the video where I had you remove all the vacuum lines and then the little lever that decides whether it's cold or hot air, because you need to put all that in. Again, there's a vacuum line on the far left. There is a vacuum line on the top. There's actually 2 vacuum lines on the top. And then there's the lever that you have to reattach that determines whether it's going to be cold or hot air coming in the cab of the truck. So one way that you can do this to make sure it's in its right spot is you want to turn the lever, I believe it's all the way to cold, and that's going to extend the lever as far as possible, and that's going to end up setting you up where it needs to be. Hindsight, if you want to, I didn't do this. You can always mark with Sharpie where your lever's at. I didn't really understand how that helped because you're removing it anyways, but just make sure you do that. And obviously you're going to put back the bracket as well. So if you do have issues either now or further on down the road of hot air coming out when it's cold, cold air coming out when it's hot, that's the lever that you would reference in order to fix that problem. Okay, so this is a similar picture to the one you were just looking at, but it is with the housing in place. So I don't have that front little cover door on yet that I showed you earlier that you end up removing. But this is everything in its spot besides that, and then the little collapsible funnel up top that I need to put up there as well. But this is going to be the last picture of the interior because really it's done. I had a heck of a time getting it back in its spot. Because what you have to remember is the 3 bolts that you undid the nuts in the engine bay, those have to line up. You have to have the 2 little tubey things that the heater hose ends up going in. You have to have that line up. You have to have the bolt that you removed inside the cab line up. It's just a lot of things having to line up at once. And what I figured the best way to do it wasn't to, you know, focus on getting one side in and then getting the other side in. It was literally to get it to the height that it needed to be and just pushing it in so everything lined up at once. But that, again, no lie, took me like 45 minutes to get in. So if it takes you a little while, just chill out, try again later, or just make sure everything's at level where it needs to be and push it straight in, because otherwise it's not going to fit. All right, so now that you have everything squared away, no pun intended, you want to move back to the engine bay and put the quick nuts back on where you found them. Here again, here's where they go. Again, I would suggest a 7/16 deep socket to fit all these. You won't fit them with a regular socket, it won't work. Also, if you use a couple of extensions with the bottom one, you shouldn't have to take out your wheel well or squeeze your hand in there and tear up your hand like I did. So after that, you want to put all those in there, and you also want to reattach your heater hoses. From that point, we're done. We're finished. You want to make sure everything works, and you're going to fill up your either your reservoir or your radiator with coolant. It's just kind of a wash as to what people think is right. Just do what you always do. You're going to let it idle and then top the coolant off and then drive it to get it up to temp, and then check the coolant afterwards to make sure that you have enough in there. Obviously, check for any leaks. And yeah, you are finished. You have changed a heater core. We have done this together. I will never do this again. I will gladly pay the $300 or $400 for somebody else to do it. Yeah, it was horrible. So I hope you made it. Hopefully this is helpful. Again, any kind of videos that I referenced during this time, I have linked down below. Like I said, you know, there was one that I watched a lot, but he didn't explain some of the things that another video watched. And then this one guy, which I will actually put this in the description, he went over the housing and how to take it apart completely by itself. So if for some reason my video doesn't help you, I hope these guys can at least help you. And yeah, that is it. Congrats.